Hello. Welcome everyone How can you come back to an episode that hasn't even started yet? Oh my God. Jesus.
Keeping it in.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 6 of 2 On, 2 Out, the Phillies podcast, brought to you by Andrew and Bob. Bob, this week, I think the best way to start this off is to ask you, is there any team in baseball, other than the Phillies, that can make a 4-game sweep so stressful?
Wow, Andrew. First of all, welcome back. Second of all, flawless. That was the first time you recorded that, and not the 8th. Definitely not the 8th time. Definitely not after a 10-minute laugh break at all. So welcome back. And I would say probably the Marlins would be my guess. They're pretty miserable to watch.
Yeah. I don't know if I call it miserable, but man, every single game, we'll get into it more detailed in a bit, but yes, the Phillies did manage to pull off a 4-game sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers, and not a single one of those games was easy. It was fun, but my God, do they know how to make it interesting. But let's back up one series and look at when the Mets came to town last
Rivalry's
weekend.
back, baby. The rivalry is back.
It felt intense. I mean, just watching on TV and then getting to be there Sunday night, you can definitely feel. You could feel it in the air. It's both teams are. I don't know if I could use the word good yet, but both teams have a shot at winning this division. So yes, there's animosity. It's you're seeing a lot of emotion from these guys, and it transfers over to the crowd, which I'm sure it won't be long before we see some fights in the stands and people getting ejected. I feel like that's what I remember a lot back in like 07, 08 during that time when both teams were going at it. But it's nice. It's nice to have that competitiveness. It's nice to feel like there's a reason to be at the ballpark. So hopefully that continues throughout the season. This series, the Mets ended up getting the best of the Phillies, but it's not for lack of trying. We'll start with Friday's game, which I think at the end of last week's podcast, we talked about the only runs the Phillies would score that inning or that game. Chase Anderson is batting with the bases loaded, strikes out as you probably would expect, but it gets dropped by James McCann. I almost called him Brian McCann, throwing it back a couple years. James McCann drops the third strike, goes behind him, and he kind of lazily runs for it, and the Phillies end up scoring 2 there. And that would be all they would score. Chase Anderson does go 5 innings, allows just 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, and then out of the bullpen, Jojo Romero, Brandon Kinsler, Jose Alvarado, and Sam Coonrod all combined for 4 innings pitched and 0 runs allowed. So yeah, not a lot of offense here, but a little bit of controversy. Jose Alvarado, I believe he had 2-1 when he was facing Dominic Smith in the bottom or top of the 8th inning. Alvarado, I believe, started the count 3-0 and then ended up striking Dom Smith out to end the frame. And a little animated on the mound there, Alvarado was. He kind of did the turnaround and fist bump and yelling whatever he was yelling. And then as he's walking towards the dugout, you could see him yelling something to Dominic Smith on the way in, and Smith wasn't a fan of it. They got pretty close to each other, and then the bench is clear, bullpens come running in. We get a little bit of controversy there. I guess my question is, how did that feel seeing that? I feel like we haven't seen a really good benches clearing instant like that in quite a while. What was your take when that happened, Bob?
I was really excited. I like a little feistiness in the game, especially against the Mets. The Mets are just always been a thorn in the side of Phillies, and obviously this started because of Alvarado, who hit Conforto a couple weeks back in New York, and Dom Smith took exception to that, and then so obviously here. he strikes him out and was fired up, but I think Dom was a little bit babyish. But it was fun to see. I like seeing people fired up, like when the old bullpens run out.
Well, and it's funny to see how quickly Alvarado has become just loved by the fans. I guess just that intensity he brings. He can fire it up there at 100 plus miles an hour. Not always the most accurate with his pitches, but
no.
Damn if he isn't fun to watch out there. He would end up. I think they originally gave him a 3-game suspension for this. He appealed and ended up being 2 games, which, I mean, 2 games for a reliever is really nothing because they typically go 2 days between appearances anyway. So, he served that. No other incidents the rest of the weekend, but it's only we're only now the 5th week into the season, so there'll be plenty of time for things to possibly bubble up again. Saturday's game, Phillies would lose that one 5-4. Zach Wheeler got started off really rough in that first inning, allows 4 earned runs to the Mets, his former club. But then he settled down.
Defense, though.
Yeah, true. You want to spotlight anybody in particular there, or?
I mean, I thought that one hit to center field. I thought that should have been caught by Odubel. He seems like he's lost a step out there. That's usually a play that he would make. Usually would make that kind of like reaching out and sort of get that last second catch. I think he should have caught that. Also, there's also the McCutcheon. I think McCutcheon was the same inning, right? Wasn't that the one where he like dropped it?
Yeah,
left field. I believe it was the same inning, right?
Yeah, because the game started like an hour early that night. I think it was a 6:00 start, and they talked about how they're not used to where the sun is at that point. And I mean, I don't think it's an excuse, but yeah, it just where the sun was, it kind of lined up with the ball, and it was in and out of the light. Again, not something that he was using as an excuse, but just that was a factor. And
yeah, and defense's whole homestand was suspect, and we'll have. I'm sure we have other spots where we can point it out, but I think Wheeler was he was good, not great that night. But take those 2 plays of usually shorthanded fielders, and I think the Phillies walk away with a win.
Well, and Wheeler did end up bouncing back. His final line, 7 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, and the only runs he allowed were those first 4 the 4 in the first inning. So, I mean, from innings 2 to 7, he looked fantastic. It was just that first inning kind of buried him. The Phillies would get it tied up. They scored 2 runs in the second, and then Alec Boehm hit a 2-run home run in the 6th inning, so it tied the score up at 4. Stayed that way until the 9th. Hector Neris comes in looking to keep the score tied and get the Phillies a chance to walk it off in the 9th. However, Michael Conforto, who, you remember these specific guys from teams. You got Michael Conforto on the Mets, Ryan Braun when he came here with the Brewers. There's another name I'm thinking of, but the Buster Posey, was just here with the Giants. These guys coming to Philadelphia and just something about Citizens Bank Park, they absolutely crushed the ball here. And Michael Conforto right in line with his career. Solo home run out to right. Puts the Mets up 5-4, and then Edwin Diaz comes in for the Mets as their closer and just completely dominant in that 9th inning. Shut the Phillies down 1-2-3. So that puts the series at 1-1, which would lead to a Sunday night game on ESPN. And this one got wild. There's plenty to talk about in this one. The final score is 8-7 Mets. But that box score or that final score does not tell you the whole story. Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto both returned to the lineup in this one. Harper had been out since the game against the Cardinals, where he got hit in the face and then the wrist, and Realmuto had been out since the game after, where that wild pitch walk off, he had busted up his wrist a little bit as well. So they're both back in the starting lineup for that one. Zach Eflin gets the start for the Phillies. Ends up going 6 innings, 10 hits. Sounds like a lot. But he scattered them well. 7 strikeouts, no walks, 2 earned runs to his line. Interesting note in I think it was the second inning. It was pretty early on. Roman Quinn. We give Roman Quinn a lot of flack for his plays at the plate or his batting at the plate, which is deserved. But he's got a heck of an arm out there in center, and it's not the first time he's done this. But he throws Dominic Smith out at the plate. Saves an early run for the Phillies. Would end up not particularly affecting the end of the game, but it's worth noting he was able to make a play like that. We can we could jump right ahead to the 8th inning here. It was a tight ball game. It might have been tied 2-2. I can't remember exactly what the score was, but in the 8th, Brandon Kinsler comes in, gives up a home run to Kevin Pillar, who just not the greatest of hitters, and just allows that solo home run off the bat and kind of deflated the team. And then from there, he'd allow another 2 hits. Then Jose Alvarado comes in, allows a hit himself, and then 2 walks. So again, just talked a little bit ago about how much fun it is to watch him pitch, but he can be erratic and ends up allowing 3 base runners, run scores in there somewhere. Then they bring in David Hale. He comes in, and it's a tough situation. I will give him that. It's hard to come into a game 1 out, bases loaded, and you're expected to shut things down. But at the same time, he is just he allows a first pitch double to Pete Alonso that clears the bases and ends up giving the Mets 6 runs in that inning. And yeah, it's just the bullpen itself was not on its game in that inning, but David Hale, I don't know why he's still on this team. I know Girardi has talked about before that he's an advocate for Hale since his days on the Yankees, but that's a guy I'd like to see off this team. And one quick thing before, because I want to let you talk, but one more quick thing to note in that inning. There was a ground ball to Reese over at first, and misplayed it, which is going to happen. It's you would like to see him make the play, but ends up going past him. Jonathan Villar was on first. He skirts over to third on the missed ground ball. But then Hoskins, kind of moping around out there and not excited about his own play. He kind of lazily tosses it over to Maton. Villar sees this and he takes off for home plate, and just with the ball kind of in the air and nobody particularly paying attention, Villar scores, and it just kind of adds insult to injury there. So just that top half of that 8th inning was not great all around, and I'm curious to know. I was at the ballpark that night, and of course it was frustrating. What did you hear watching the game and hearing the ESPN broadcasters talk about it?
Well, I didn't hear the ESPN broadcasters because I can't stand them.
Smart.
I was listening to the radio broadcast,
okay.
And I had the game on mute. That's a discussion probably for another time, but I miss John Miller and Joe Morgan. They were the great ESPN duo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, first of all, David Hale, I don't want to see him at any sort of high leverage situation again for a long time or ever. He, a couple weeks ago, he gave up the grand slam to Story. That was a high leverage spot. He gave up the walk off on the wild pitch, and now he has the bases clearing double. So I don't want to see him out there for these kind of situations. I don't know why Brogdon wasn't used. He only threw 9 pitches the day before. Neris only threw 11 or 12 pitches the day before. I don't get why they weren't available to be used. I'm just I don't want to see David Hale used in those situations because I just don't trust him.
Yeah, and there's, like you just said, there's other options, and he just has not performed. Even last year, he had a couple of bright spots, but just overall, he's just not getting it done. And I don't know.
But again, also it goes to the defense. I mean,
yes.
We lost. 2 of these 3 games we lost because of the defense. If it wasn't for 2 bad plays on Saturday in the first inning, we probably could have won that game. If it wasn't for a play where Reese was not thinking, he didn't get the ball back in time. It was a very nice heads-up play by the Mets there to send him. But it's just you gotta just think a little bit when you're out there.
Yep. And worth noting how the ninth inning played out. So Edwin Diaz comes out again for the second straight game, and I mentioned before how dominant he was in that game. He was equally as not dominant in this game. Immediately gives up a walk to Gregorius, does strike out Nick Maton, but then Roman Quinn comes through with a triple out to the right center field gap, scores Didi. So the Phillies are then they're within through 4 at that point. 3 actually at that point. Yes. So it puts Quinn to third. Odubel Herrera would come up and strike out. So now you got 2 outs in the inning. Credit to Matt Joyce, who comes in as a pinch hitter, and ends up working a walk. That's a tough situation. Bottom of the ninth, you got a runner at third like that, 2 outs against a pretty good closer. Diaz has had a pretty nice bounce back since his first season with the Mets. But Joyce works the walk. So then you got 2 runners on, and Hoskins comes up, with the team down 3 and has a chance to save things here. And my goodness, he was quite literally an inch away from salvation. He drives the ball out to right field that hits directly off the top of the railing out there, bounces back onto the field. The umpires signal it as a home run, but after review, it ends up being a double. And I understand the frustration of it. And there's a video there of Hoskins with some not so nice words for the umpires, but it is actually a double. That's the Citizens Bank Park ground rules. If it had bounced off and went into the stand, it would have been a home run. However, it is a double. Still, it puts Hoskins at second and brings up Bryce Harper with a chance to tie it or walk things off. But unfortunately, Bryce strikes out there, and I do wonder how much of that was due possibly to his wrists, because then since that game, that was his return game, but we haven't seen Bryce since. Wrist, possibly aggravated in that one. So it was nice to see the team put together somewhat of a rally there in the bottom of the ninth, scoring 3 off of a really good closer. Kind of, we would rather see them get the win, but nice to see that they didn't throw in the towel and still hung around there. But in the end, Mets take 2 out of 3, and this series is going to be close all year. I think the Mets have a win or 2 more than the Phillies do in that matchup, but we're going to see them plenty more as the season goes on. So after that series, the Phillies welcome the Milwaukee Brewers into Citizens Bank Park. And, we talked last week when we were talking about this series, the Brewers were playing pretty well. As a matter of fact, as of Monday heading into that first game, they were tied with the San Francisco Giants for the best record in the National League. So, this looked like it was going to be a tough matchup for the Phillies. When you and I discussed this last week, I think we had both said, splitting, taking 2 out of 4 would be great. Winning 3 would be ideal. But as we mentioned at the top, they end up sweeping the Brewers here. So this first game, Phillies end up on top 4-3. Vince Velasquez gets the start. Goes 6 innings with 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 earned run. Yeah. Literally, this is the story of Vince Velasquez. He will do this. His start before this one wasn't too bad either, and he's due to play against the Braves, and he's had 2 straight pretty decent starts. So I'm a little bit afraid of what's coming next, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. JT Realmuto hits a home run. Roman Quinn hits a triple in this one. Connor Brogdon comes in the 8th inning to face the Brewers lineup. Phillies, I think at that point, were up 4-0 or 4-1, and Brogdon gives up 2 walks, a single, and then a sacrifice fly. So Neris comes in to try to settle the dust a little bit. He gets a ground out and then is able to pick a runner off at first base. I think it was Vogelback, and escape that 8th inning without sacrificing the lead. The Phillies led at that point 4-3. Neris would go on to get the 5-out save. However, again, we talked about in the series, every one of these games were down to the wire. Brewers ended up loading the bases in the 9th, but could not score a single run to tie it up or to take the lead. So yeah, Nera's 5-out save. Brogdon has been a little bit shaky overall lately. He had such a great start to the season. Are you concerned at all about him? Do you see him? Do you think he may need some time on the minor league team, or is this kind of something at this point he needs to work it out here in the majors?
I would prefer to see him work it out up here. Besides that first blow up he had, well, Monday night was not particularly great. He only got through a third of an inning. He hasn't really super imploded. He's given up some runs since that scoreless inning streak, obviously, but I like to see him work it out up here. If he has like a few more outings where he really implodes, it was giving up like multiple runs again, then maybe I'd like to see him in the minors, but as of right now, I think he should be able to work his way out of this funk.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's put in the time and he's earned the right to stay here. And yeah,
I also want to say that Dan Vogelback is my spirit animal.
Gets what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is a large gentleman. And you know what's also interesting? I don't know if you noticed, he stands about 9 feet off of home plate when he's up batting. I don't know how he hits anything on the outside part of the plate, because I don't think you could be further away from the plate and still be in the batter's box. He's
batting 172. So
there you go. So to jump ahead to Tuesday's game, once again, Phillies win, this time 6-5. Notice a trend here. Phillies quite a lot of one-run games here. This one gets started by Aaron Nola. A 30-pitch first inning. 30 pitches, you typically think, oh boy, that's, you're probably giving up quite a number of runs. Just the one run allowed. He strains the bases loaded in the first. Goes on very similar to Zach Wheeler. A rough first inning turns into a pretty decent outing. He ends up with 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 10 strikeouts, 2 walks, and just the 1 earned run. I believe he left the bases loaded in the 6th as well. So he had plenty of trouble, but he also worked himself out of it. And I think that's what you expect out of an ace. You can't expect perfection every time, but you do like to see them work themselves out of these jams. And Nola certainly did it that night. After Nola comes out of the game, Eniel De Los Santos is back with the major league roster. However, his name wasn't added to the lineup card, and so when he comes out of the bullpen to take the mound, Craig Counsell comes out to the umpire and says, "Excuse me, Mr. De Los Santos is not on the lineup card, and the Phillies can't use him." So then we get David Hale comes in, allows a single, a hit by pitch, and a single. So right in line with what we said before, David Hale just something's not right, and I don't. We give a little leeway to Connor Brogdon because he is younger and he has shown what he can do. I think David Hale is a different case because he just, he's had a year. He's been on this team all year, obviously this year, and they brought him in late in the season last year, and just I haven't seen anything that makes me think he deserves a shot to stick around. So after Hale comes out after facing 3. Jojo Romero comes in. He does get 2 groundouts, but then he allows a 2-run home run to Jackie Bradley Jr. So not, a solid outing. It's again tough to come in and get these inherited runners, but he leaves. The Phillies are still in the lead, and after that, Sam Coonrod comes in and also gets a 5-out save. So back-to-back 5-out save nights. Again, this time by Coonrod. Also worth noting, Andrew McCutchen had a couple of home runs in this one. He hit one in the leadoff spot in the first inning, and then another one in the third. And he certainly looks like he's getting things right for himself. Getting on base a little bit more and doing things better at the plate. So, I think also worth mentioning Brad Miller. I believe he started every one of these games for the Phillies and right with Harper. Not on the injured list, but not playing in any of these games. And Miller hits the 3-run home run himself, after JT got on with an error. So Phillies capitalizing on some mistakes by the Brewers. Again, they take this one 6-5. I think 2 things that I want to talk about in this game. First off, is Andrew McCutchen. I just mentioned how his his offense seems to be coming around. Are you comfortable with leaving him in the leadoff spot, or is there someone else on this team that you think maybe should take over? And if that is the case, where do you put McCutchen if you're not going to have him as leadoff?
I would like to see. I know he's not with the team right now, but once he gets back, I'd like to see Segura probably be up there, or maybe a guy even like Didi, up there. And I'd like to see Kutch back down in like the 7-8 hole, just to see if he can work his way out of like the funk. Like the last few games has been sort of hopeful. He's gotten his legs sort of back under him, and he's driving the ball. Obviously, he had that 2 home run game this week, but yeah, I like to see more consistency out of him for him to be able to stick at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, I can understand that. I like what I've seen in the last few games. I'm okay with him there for now. Segura is looking like he's going to be back, starting with tomorrow night's game at the Braves. So we'll see. Maybe there will be a shakeup in the lineup, or maybe Girardi gives Segura a couple of games to see some major league pitches and reassess. The other thing I want to take out of this game is Coonrod looked great out of the bullpen, getting that 5-out save. Again, much like Neris, he allowed a couple base runners in the 9th, but is able to stick it out and gets the 5-out save. Really impressed with Coonrod this year. I wasn't sure what to expect from him. Knew he had a big arm, but I don't think anybody knew too much more than that. But he's looked really solid, and I like him in a late inning, high leverage situation role. I really think he's shined there. I don't know if we want to talk taking the closer spot, but do you think would you pick him as the reliable guy to come up and clean up a tight 8th inning? Is he your go-to guy? Especially with Archie Bradley being out, and when he comes back, there's probably going to be a few weeks where we got to let him resettle back in. So do you think Coonrod is the go-to guy before Neris?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's just been solid, just very consistently solid this year. 1.23 ERA. He's just been.
And he seems very composed. He seems very composed. Yeah. They did a post game interview with him after the save, and he seemed. I really liked his attitude. He just seemed very happy and composed. Yeah, he just seemed like he was. I really liked it. I'm becoming a fan of his, and yeah, I think it's nice to have a guy that you can basically rely on to be your setup guy. And
yeah, I mean, like it's just it's so funny, night and day difference he was compared to a year ago. So he's pitched the same amount of innings as he did all of last season. So far in 14 and 2/3 innings this year, he's given up 9 hits and 2 runs. In 14 and 2/3 of all of last season, 17 hits, 16 earned runs.
Wow.
Yeah. So he has just been way better difference. He's just been a much improved pitcher this year. And I believe the only earned runs he's given up have both been solo home runs, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have any stats on like inherited runners, so I'm not sure how he's been doing with inherited runners. Just by my memory, I think he's been fairly good. But yeah, he's been probably the most consistent pitcher that the Phillies have had this year.
Yeah, it's a great point because even the guys that like Connor Brogdon, who we've talked about, has looked good, but also has had shaky innings. Brandon Kinsler, I think overall has been good, but also has had some shaky innings. So yeah, Coonrod, Yeah, I would agree. I think he's been the most consistent and probably the most reliable. If you're not going to make him the closer, then yeah, I think he's your setup guy. So moving on to Wednesday's game. Once again, another 1-run game, another Phillies win. Phillies win that one 5-4.
Yeah, I think I heard on the broadcast that this was a record or a tied record for most
Tied.
1-1 record. Yeah, 1-run games in Phillies. Yeah, so like a
Yeah.
30-year or 40-year record.
Yeah, I think 1980. It was sometime in June. They had 7 straight 1-run games. They went 2-5 in that stretch. Let's see, the Phillies here 3, 4. It's a loss. So 4-3 in this stretch. But yeah, Phillies win another close one, 5-4. Chase Anderson got his second start of the homestand. Again, 4 and 3rd innings pitched, 2 strikeouts, 4 walks, 3 earned runs. So not getting that consistency out of the 4 and 5 spots. Struggling to get into the 5th and 6th innings, which is something we're going to address here in a little bit. He does allow a home run to Tyrone Taylor in the 5th. It was a pinch hit appearance, and I think that's when he got taken out of the game. Jojo Romero comes in, not the cleanest of innings, but I don't believe he gave up any runs. After that game, Jojo would get placed on the injured list. You could see his velocity was down. Ended up being an elbow injury. I'm not sure yet how long he'll be out, but perhaps whatever work he's going to have done in that time will help him out a bit.
Yeah, and not surprising, not completely surprising that he's gone down with injury. His velocity hasn't been the same all season compared to where it was last year, which is sort of why he struggled so much. I just hope, I think we all hope that it's just not anything that really structural that would take weeks or months to heal, but we'll see.
To finish out the pitching lines for the Phillies in this one, Kinsler, Matt Moore, Daniel De Los Santos, and Jose Alvarado all combined for 4 1/3 innings pitched and no more runs allowed. Yeah, it was nice to see Matt Moore come back. I believe he gave up is that the game? No, I'm confusing the game. But he allowed a leadoff hitter, didn't score. And then De Los Santos ends up correctly being put on the lineup card and has a scoreless appearance as well. So, yeah, that could be what we see out of Matt Moore. Maybe he will learn to be more comfortable in that bullpen role. We'll see. It's something that they tried with Velasquez that I don't know if it's official that it hasn't worked out. I don't know what when to call that situation, but hopefully that's something that Matt Moore can get comfortable with. The only offense for the Phillies in this one came in the 1st inning. We have a leadoff double by Andrew McCutchen, walk by Brad Miller, Reese with an RBI single, and then JT walks. So we've got the bases loaded for Sir Didi. And Mr. Gregorius hits a grand slam out to right field. And that was his 8th grand slam of his career. He is a monster with the bases loaded. He steps up big time. And, man, I am so glad he came back to this team and we've got him for a couple of years because he's a ton of fun to watch. Couldn't be a nicer guy. It's I think I mentioned this before. It's Bronx, my dog. Didi is his favorite player, so it was a big deal in this house when it was a big deal in this house when Didi hit his grand slam. Sure fun first inning. Go ahead.
Barking up a storm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, confused as to why we kept telling him to be happy, but he was happy. I guess a concern in this one is Phillies didn't have another hit after the 1st inning. I mean, they scored all the runs they needed, but the offense absolutely shut down after that. So we've pointed out all season that this offense is inconsistent and lacking. Now, again, this is something we'll get into in a little bit here, but I mean, all around baseball offense is down. But yeah, in particular here, the Phillies, it's concerning to a degree. They're eking out these wins, but at some point you need to kind of catch up and help your pitchers out. You can't expect the pitchers to go out there and have these high stress innings every game. You need to have the offense break out and give a nice comfortable 6-7 run lead and not have to worry about it. Hopefully as these guys get healthy and we get a regular lineup going again, things could break out. But yeah, that was All the runs in that one scored in the first inning. So that brings us to the final game of this series. Final score would see the Phillies with 2 and the Brewers not scoring a single run. And Bob, why don't you tell us why the Brewers didn't score a run today?
Oh, that was because Mr. Zach Wheeler, have you heard of him? Went the complete game, 3 hits, shutouts, struck out 8, and helped little old me get a little bit closer to my prediction of 4 complete games for Phillies pitchers.
Well, I don't know. I missed the post game interview myself. I don't know if you caught it, but apparently in that interview he said verbatim, "I want to make Bob's wishes come true," and he,
how sweet.
He's contributing to your prediction, and that's
Yeah.
what got him through that 9th inning. But in seriousness, Wheeler did allow, I think, a double in the 2nd inning to Billy McKinney, but man, aside from that, he faced the minimum going into the 9th. He allowed a couple base runners in the last frame, but yeah, comes away with a complete game shutout, his first since 2014 with the Mets. Worth mentioning, Brandon Woodruff from the Brewers was matching him. I mean, up through into the 7th inning, it was a scoreless ball game. Luckily for the Phils, though, on the 100th pitch of the game from Woodruff, Alec Boehm hits an opposite field solo home run, gives the Phillies a 1-0 win. They end up tacking on one more in the 9th. McCutchen has a 2-out single. Brad Miller walks, and then Rhys Hoskins hits a double to plate McCutchen. Phillies come away with a 2-0 win and a 4-game sweep of the Brewers. Just really, like I said, every game was stressful. You had the late inning worries, but a 4-game sweep is a 4-game sweep, and it's great to see, especially against the Brewers, who, like I said, coming into this series, they were tied for the best record in the National League. So, does this make the Phillies one of the top teams in the National League? No, but it's going to be something that I think should at least give them some momentum, especially because they did it without Bryce Harper, arguably their best hitter. So now you headed into this road trip, a nice 4-game win streak, a sweep, should give them a little bit of momentum as they, head into another, to face another divisional opponent. Anything in particular that stood out to you in this sweep, or anything that kind of points in the positive direction for this team?
I was very impressed with this sweep, not only because it was a sweep, but because of how well the Brewers have been playing on the road. They were a much better road team than they were at home in the early part of the season. So that alone was just impressive. Woodruff, man, seeing him in person today, I wasn't at the game, but watching him today, this guy has some good stuff, and he's just been on fire this year. So he's, I think he's an early contender for a Cy Young at this rate, although he has some stiff competition with some guy in New York. But very good. I think what makes it more satisfying this sweep is the fact that it sort of makes up for the Mets series, because honestly, this whole homestand could have been a 7-game sweep. Bad defense, bad umpiring the entire homestand, some crazy umpiring. This easily could have been a 7-0 homestand, which is wild to me. But even with all that said, this team is still very mediocre. But as we talked about before we started recording, so is kind of the rest of baseball.
Yeah, well, so the one thing I mentioned to you before we clicked record here, just looking at overall the offensive stats for teams this year, one of the things I found pretty interesting. So in 2015, the number 30 team in terms of batting average was the San Diego Padres. They were hitting 243 that season. If you fast forward to 2021, if a team is hitting 243, they'd be 8th overall in baseball. So, offensive numbers are way down. Phillies right now are hitting 230 as a team, which is good for 19th in baseball. So there are 10 other teams that are hitting worse. Just looking through the hit list here, one of them being the Yankees. The Yankees, who I think everyone expected to be this offensive juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Oakland Athletics, who are playing very well. I think they're still number one in the American League West. So there are teams that are, struggling, and it's just a baseball epidemic. And that's not to say that the Phillies couldn't improve upon what they're doing, but there is some things to consider here, that that it's not centralized here. It's something that's going on around baseball, but things can be improved for sure. I think one of the glaring spots that needs improvement is center field. When you take a look at center fielders overall in baseball, the Phillies are dead last in terms of batting average, and it is not close. Center fielders for the Phillies are hitting 137 this season. The next lowest team, Seattle Mariners, are at 167, so a full 30 points higher. And it's getting to a point where it needs to be addressed. I don't think you can continue with a carousel of Odubel Herrera, Mickey Moniak, Roman Quinn. I'm sure they'll stick Scott Kingery out there. We even see with Segura coming back, we may see Nick Maton out there. To me, you can't keep doing that. You need, if you're going to be a team that's going to compete in its division and into the playoffs, you need to have an everyday center fielder, and they just don't have that right now. There's not one guy that is standing out above the rest. Roman Quinn on this homestand was hitting well. You saw his average creeping up pretty steadily. He had a couple triples, a couple other base hits, but then he gets hurt, which is his MO. So, even the guy that looked like he was on pace to maybe take that spot gets himself injured. So something needs to be done. And Bob, I've got a list here of 4 possible, names out there that could end up on the trading block. And
Andrew, I love lists, so let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love this? That's I don't know where I was going with that. I was going to make some kind of joke, but I didn't, because I'm too worried about center field in Philadelphia. So the first thing I brought up, we've talked about him on this podcast before. Mitch Haniger, playing right now for the Seattle Mariners, which is ironic because I just said that center field, they are the next lowest. But that's not all due to Mitch. He is hitting 254 at the plate, 300 on base, which you'd like to see that a little bit higher. But 8 home runs, so he's got quite a bit of pop. 23 RBIs, which I think would be number 1 on the Phillies. So I think that's certainly a guy you could look at to play center field.
I mean that's 8 home runs, and Seattle is a big ballpark.
Yeah.
So maybe those numbers become a little bit higher if he plays, in Philadelphia, especially in this division. Like, there's some ballparks in this division that are much more hitter friendly than some of the stadiums out in the West.
Well, and just for what it's worth, looking back at his last couple of years, Haniger has not played center field yet this season. I think he missed last season. I'm not sure if he chose to sit out or if he was injured last year, but he did not play last season. 2019, he had 24 games in center field. 2018, he had 35. 2017, he played 6. And then 2016, he played out there for 22 games. So he has experience out there. He seems to be more of a right fielder DH, but clearly can play center field if needed. I don't know about you, but I am very much willing to sacrifice a bit of defense for an improvement on offense. Yes, you want your center fielder to be pretty steady out there, but I think he has enough experience that I'd be comfortable with him being our center fielder if defensively, if we can get that kind of offensive production out of him. But again, very much speculation. It's all about where the Mariners end up. They're kind of a meme nowadays as far as starting hot and then cooling off and not really amounting to anything. And But who knows? Maybe they make a run and they're not looking to get rid of anybody. Another guy that whose name has been brought up, but again, another team that could stay in contention and may not be looking to get rid of anyone. Randall Grichuk of the Toronto Blue Jays, currently hitting .302 with an on-base percentage of .342, slugging .481. He's got 5 home runs, a couple of doubles, 21 RBIs. Again, a vast improvement over over what we have here. I'd ask you if you'd be happy with him being here, but I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I take him. I think he'd be a little bit harder to get. Like you said, I think Toronto more likely than Seattle is a team that can hang around in their division. They are on a 7-3 streak over the last 10 games, and only 2 games behind Boston. So I think it'd be a little bit harder to get. But yeah, I mean, anything is better. Is your dog available, or put your outfit, a uniform on your dog and send him out there?
You get him swinging a bat, I'll let him play. The last 2 guys that I have on the list here are probably easier gets. 2 teams that already seem to be kind of out of it. This next one actually would be my preference if something could be worked out. Raimel Tapia of the Rockies. We just saw him playing pretty well against us out there in Colorado. Hitting .312 this season, .356 on base. Last year, shortened season for everyone, he hit .321 with a .369 on base. And even the season before, 138 games, he hit .275 on base of .309. Not a huge home run threat, although he does have 4 this year, 19 RBIs, and he'll steal a few bases. He is probably on this list, or at least for me, is the most appealing. I just think with that combination of speed and ability to get on base, just really stands out to me. One thing of note before I pass it on to you for your thoughts: has not officially played center field since 2019. But again, I don't think that's because he can't. I think it's feasible. And again, I don't know about you, but I am totally willing to give up a bit of defensive prowess for somebody who can hit like he is.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tapia. He is on the younger side. I don't know where he fits in with their whole situation organizational wise. They're in a bit of a weird spot where they are like rebuilding. They gave up Arenado over the offseason. But I don't know if they consider him part of their building block because he has been playing very well, and he is younger. He's like 27. So probably would be a little bit harder to get just based on his age and how well he's playing. And I don't know how much we have that would interest Colorado. If we did have the right pieces, by all means, let's do it. Again, they're a lefty bat in the lineup here. But he's a guy who, unless the Rockies really are trying to just give away people, which I don't think they're at quite yet, I think he's going to be a little bit tough to get just because of his age and how well he is playing.
Yeah. Again, it depends on how, you mentioned the Rockies are in a state of unknown right now. They fire their GM and they just always seem to be kind of out there, and you don't really know what's going on. So I'd like to see it, but all of these trades are first, you have to have the team willing to talk back with the Phillies, and then the Phillies need to have something they can give up that's better than any other team that's looking. So one other name out there, not as flashy numbers this season from the Baltimore Orioles, Anthony Santander. Right now he's hitting 196 with an on-base of 230, so not ideal. However, the last 2 seasons he's batted 261 each season, on base hovering right around 300. Again, another guy that just would be an improvement over what's there now, and it's a shame we're at a point where it's kind of just I don't want to say bottom feeding because I don't think Santander is a bottom of the barrel, but it's an improvement. And if you're going to have this team be competitive, you've got to make a move like this. And I think Santander can be had relatively easily.
Yeah, I don't even think he's considered their starter, right? Don't they have Mullins? Isn't Mullins really their starter in center field?
You may be right. He only has 16 games played this year, and similar to the other guys that we've mentioned so far, no starts in center field. He's specifically a right fielder. But
yeah. So he seems to be more of a bench guy, which is fine.
Yeah.
If he's the kind of guy who they think he can stick as like a everyday guy or even a platoon guy, that's interesting. That's an interesting name because I don't think the Orioles consider him a starter. So maybe for a bench guy on a team that's not really in the mix in their division, maybe that's probably the best you're going to get right now.
Yeah. Again, all depends on what the Phillies are willing to part with, and which teams are feeling like they're out of it and can part with a player.
Yeah, and it seems the Orioles and the Phillies have had good rapport trade wise over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that name is actually pretty interesting to me. I'd like to see if his name gets done around later on in the year.
Well, as we kind of wrap up here, one last thing we'll talk about is the bullpen. Definitely improved over last year. However, right now they sit 25th overall in ERA at a 4.98. Quite literally exactly average. Their WAR is 0.0. There is no other team in baseball whose WAR is exactly 0, or no other bullpen who is exactly 0. So our bullpen is quite literally average, which is what we asked for after last year. They had this exact bullpen last year. They make the playoffs, and who knows from there. But so I pulled up a couple names here. We don't have to go through as extensively as we did the center fielders. One guy in particular that stood out to me, Shane Green, who pitched for the Braves last season, and I think at the end of 2019. He had an ERA of 2.60 for the Braves last year.
Is he still a free agent?
He is, yeah. 30,
what?
Age 31, appeared in 28 games for the team, 27 and 2/3 innings pitched. His strikeouts were down. So in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, his strikeouts per 9 were right at about 7, in some cases right at 9, sometimes closer to 10. Last year, that dropped down to under 7. Walks were up just a bit, hovering around 3. So perhaps his numbers are a little dissuading for some people. His expected ERA was a full run higher than his actual ERA. So he may have been pitching above what he can really do, and maybe teams are a little worried about giving him. I don't know what he's asking for in terms of a contract, but I think he would perfectly fit in with his team. I mean, if you can replace a David Hale with a Shane Green, I think that's a win every day of the week. That's another arm to go in with, Bradley when he's back, and Jose Alvarado in terms of guys that they've, and Brandon Kinsler in terms of veteran guys, well-known names that they've brought in to bolster this bullpen. And to me, yes, you had the same reaction I did. I was like, how is he still a free agent? So maybe there's something we're overlooking here, but what would you think of possibly adding Shane Green to the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested. I actually just Googled the season or anything out there about him. Looks like he is drawing interest by some teams, according to John Heyman. He owns a career ERA of 4.38. I think the hesitance may have been the fact that he looked good in Atlanta, but overall has been
last
sort
season
of
only 3 appearances. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that was due to injury. He had an ERA close to 8. But prior to that, 2019, 91 innings pitched, ERA of 4.12. The year before that, 65 innings pitched with an ERA of 3.46. he's another high strikeout guy. Even in 2020 last season, when he only had 2 1/3 innings pitched, he was on pace for 12 strikeouts per nine. Walks were a little bit high, but again, another guy that I don't know if he was commanding a lot or if people saw last season as kind of concerning, but another veteran guy. I think you add to this bullpen over say David Hale, or if Connor Brogdon continues to struggle, somebody you could stick in there and help to possibly get that WAR over 0.0.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe age is a factor. Though he was only 33 years old. I don't know really why he hasn't garnered more attention. He did have a 7 ERA, but that was only 2 innings. Yeah, interesting. I would need more information on him to see why he's still out there, because it's just weird that both these guys are still available when they're seem to be serviceable relievers.
Yeah, agreed. And neither guy had to be willing to give a 1-year deal to. And one last name I want to bring up, and it may sound a little familiar. Blake Parker is still available.
Nope, pass.
Well, just to put out there information, 14 games last year, 16 innings pitched,
sweet,
2.81 ERA,
sweet,
and its expected ERA was 2.88, so he's pitched as expected.
Sweet, awesome, pass.
Blake Parker is available as a possible bullpen option. Just to throw the name out there.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, he was okay for us last year. I think why not throw him in the mix? Why not?
Well, I think it's a name
choosers.
Because I think we agree at this point that David Hale, that experiment is over. So, take a flyer on Blake Parker, perhaps. Maybe he's not even looking to play. He is 35, going on 36.
We need a guy who, when he pitches, he looks like he's looking into a pizza oven. That's what we need. A guy who bends down low and
you distract the pitcher. That's what it is. Yeah. So looking ahead, the upcoming week for the Phillies, their schedule, they head to Atlanta for a 3-game set. It's their second trip.
You love Atlanta. Are you going down?
I don't mind Atlanta itself. I would love to take a trip to Atlanta, but when the Phillies are playing in Truist Park, my God, I can't stand it. And I'm going to be stressed all weekend watching these games. Although, I mean, any Phillies game is stressful nowadays as it is. So, but yes, I can't stand when the Phillies go down to play Atlanta. And I'm sure. Oh, here we go. An over-under, a last-minute over-under. I'm going to put it at 2.5. Well, we'll go with it. How many signs do we see where people are referencing the Alec Boehm hasn't touched home plate ordeal from the last time they were in Atlanta?
Under.
Yeah, probably under. You're right. Nobody makes signs
anymore. No.
Yeah, this isn't WWE. What are you talking about?
No.
But I'm sure he will get booed loudly for something that was out of his control.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm really looking forward to Sunday, not because the game's on ESPN, because I hate ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball crew, but because the pitching matchup.
Yeah. So Friday's game, we'll see Zach Eflin go against former Phillies legend Charlie Morton. Mm-hmm. Saturday, we'll see Vince Velasquez, current Phillies legend. He'll go up against Ian Anderson. And then, Sunday's matchup, Aaron Nola, the ace of the Phillies, goes up against Huascar Ynoa, I believe is how you say his name.
I believe that's how you say it, yes.
Ynoa has 2 home runs this season as a starting pitcher, one of those being a grand slam. And he's pitching pretty damn well also. So, agreed. That's going to be a heck of a matchup. So with that lineup going into Atlanta, where do you see this series going?
I feel like I say this all the time. I like 2 out of 3. Charlie Morton has sort of come back to earth a little bit. His ERA is up around 5. I I think Zach is due for sort of a bounce back performance. He's kind of been middling his last couple starts. So I think we can win there. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher on Saturday against Ian Anderson. Ian has just been really good for them. It just hopefully you can get some out of there, and maybe you can steal one on Saturday because I think Sunday's going to be tough. But I do think the Phillies could easily get 2 out of 3. Maybe have to steal a game on Saturday and or Sunday. But yeah, that's what I'm feeling.
Well, my optimism is not near as high as yours is. I'm looking at this and I see one win.
Oof.
Yeah, I feel okay with Friday's game. I think Eflin, should be able to outduel Troy Morton, but we've seen Eflin have his share of games where he is just not on on his A game. Former Phillies like to haunt the Phillies when they are up against them. So, yeah, I think 1 out of 3 is they'll either win the Friday or the Sunday game, and I'm already chalking up Saturday to a loss, but maybe that's not right of me. And then after that, they have an off day Monday, and then they head to Washington D.C. to play the Nationals. Nothing announced formally yet, but it looks like the pitchers in that series will be Chase Anderson, Zach Wheeler, and Zach Eflin. How about there in Washington? It'll be the first time we see the Nationals this season. How do you think things stack up there, even though we don't know the probable National starters?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I don't know where we're going to see or who we're going to see as far as the National starters. The way you feel about going to Atlanta is sort of the way I feel about going to Washington, at least in the last couple years. I used to not be that way. I used to be, you asked me like 10 years ago, 10 years ago, I felt so good going to Washington. I didn't have any pressure. But I think ever since Scherzer became a National, it's just not a place that I like going to.
It's interesting because as I sit here and look at these two series, I feel quite a bit better going to Washington than I do Atlanta. I think in that series, the Phillies, again, it depends on the matchups, but Scherzer is really the only starter on the Nationals that I'm like worried about. Patrick Corbin has not been himself. Strasburg, I believe, is still injured. I think John Lester joined the rotation, but he's on the decline in his career. So I think the Phillies can and should go 500 on this trip. I think they take 1 in Atlanta and 2 in Washington. That's overall how I see this trip going for them.
Hey, that would be pretty okay because I think this division is just in a weird spot right now, where everybody's still trying to figure themselves out. But I see this as I'm going to say 3-3. That's where I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you saw it today, but there was a story about Archie Bradley, who he hopes to rejoin the team after the road trip. So after the Phils go to Atlanta and Washington, they head out to Toronto. So hopefully that means we can see Archie back with the club in a couple weeks when the Phillies welcome Miami back to Philly.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting at that point to see who the whose spot Archie takes in that bullpen. That's almost 2 weeks from now, so a lot of things could change.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll be back next week to discuss the first 2 legs of this road trip and see how our predictions hold up and perhaps see if anybody has distanced himself in this NL East. But until then, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone who has followed us on social media and interacted with our posts. Very much appreciated. Bob, any closing thoughts for the people?
Spay and neuter your pets, folks.
That's great advice. Great advice. Listen to Bob, who in fact was named after Bob Barker. So it's quite apt. Yes, thank you everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next time. Bye.